Well, welcome back, folks, to the From the Head's Desk podcast. This is our second one, and it'll be even better than the last one because we have a fantastic guest with us today. This is Trisha Hasbrouck,
Hello.
Our exceptional college counselor. And rather than me tell you about her, she should, but I'll just give you a little taste that she has worked all over the world, and in fact, all over the country. So without further ado, Trisha, can you tell us a little bit more about your background as an educator?
Sure. So I had no intention of being an educator. Like so many people, I was going to be a sports broadcaster. And then I studied abroad in college, and my whole, as cliche as it sounds, my whole life changed. And I just dove into education. And it started with international study, international college programming. And then I moved into college admissions. So I worked in the admissions side at a large state school in Texas. And like many, my favorite part was working with the kids. So I went back to school and became a teacher. And I was an AP English and speech teacher for about 12 years. And during that time, I worked at 4 different public schools and then later 4 different private schools. And I was able to direct programs and actually institute the college programs at both the school in Fez, Morocco and in Qingdao, China. And then I was the director of a college counseling program at an all-girls school in St. Louis, and now I'm here. So I can't imagine doing anything else. I know that I made so many mistakes when I applied to college. I pretty much did everything you can do wrong when it came to the application process, the financial aid process, and I just am so passionate about making sure that kids and families feel supported, and I love it.
Well, it's pretty clear you love it, and then pretty clear the students love you. Every time I walk by the college office, I see a gaggle of students in there. And I think that actually says a lot about your connection and Ms. Williams' connection with our kids, and it makes a big difference. And it's a different landscape than it used to be. I know, I won't say when I applied to college, but it was a long, long time ago. And things have changed even in the last 5 to 10 years exponentially. Could you talk about those changes, in particular the ones during and post-COVID?
Oh, sure. And we do love our kids, but we also bribe them with beanbags and Pop-Tarts, so that may have something to do with the crowd. But in all seriousness, I did apply to college back in the 90s, over 30 years ago, and I think the changes are even hard for me to grasp, and this is my profession. So since COVID, obviously that changed everything, but during COVID, obviously standardized test centers were shut down. So test optional admission policies increased, and then they skyrocketed. And now there's over 2,000 schools that are test optional. So for kids who are amazing students day to day, but maybe not the best test takers, the new policy allowed them to be super highly competitive at schools they once thought were out of their league. Which is a wonderful thing, but it also means that these schools year after year are seeing record-breaking application numbers. So that is a huge difference in these college campuses, and their admissions offices are still having the same number of spots they can give away for freshmen. So that doesn't increase, but now they have 60,000 applications instead of 25,000 applications. So the acceptance rates are often plummeting. And it just seems scary, but there's close to 4,000 schools in America alone. So, there's lots of options, but it is a big change for students to have to kind of think outside their comfort zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm really glad you talked about, diversity and the quality and depth of quality in this country. One of the things that my family went through several years ago was going through this process with our daughter, and one of the things that we really encouraged her to do is to drive the process, rather than making her feel like we were managing it. But I got to tell you, it's hard to do that. So as you think about parents, and how they can help their student navigate the process, knowing that you have an incredible team of experts to help as well. But from a parental standpoint, what advice do you give them to be most supportive of their children and even themselves through this process?
So I think the key word is support, not drive. I think as parents, from birth, we're wanting to care for them and protect them and make sure that they have the best opportunities. But I cannot stress enough the importance of encouraging your student to take the lead. They are the ones that colleges want to hear from. They're the ones that if a college admission counselor is meeting with you on a campus tour, they want to hear from you and not your mom. They want to hear from the student. If the student is looking to be recruited for athletics, the coaches want to hear directly from the kid first. I cannot stress enough how often colleges feel like they should be admitting the parent instead of the student because the parent is the one driving. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't need your support and encouragement, and sometimes even your, organizational assistance. They of course need you, but instead of driving, you need to be a navigational partner, kind of guiding them along in the side seats, not in the driver's seat.
No, that's great advice. And one of the things I've worked, as you have, all over the country and in your case, all over the world. And my career has been all in independent schools. So I've worked in schools in New England, the Mid-Atlantic, the Midwest, the Pacific Northwest, and now, of course, Florida. And interestingly, one of the things that I have heard in all of those schools is some anxiety from parents that the rigor of independent schools might actually put their children at a disadvantage. And the notion that, because these are such college preparatory schools and they're hard, that maybe their grade point average isn't as high as others, or maybe somehow just people don't understand the level at which they're working. What might you say to that parent who thinks, my goodness, is St. Stephen's actually disadvantaging my child in this process?
Yeah, and that is something that I've heard over the years. At almost every school I've worked at, interestingly, even the public schools, well, if I were in this district, my kid would be doing better. If I went to that school, my kid would be doing better. But the thing is I have worked at a total of 8 different schools, public and private, and I have seen the highest levels of academic achievement at every single type of school. The main difference, there's intelligent people everywhere that will blow your mind, and it's inspiring and wonderful. But the main thing, truly, is that at my public schools, my kids often had to vie for my attention because they were one of 35 kids. And when I was a coach, we had to cut a lot of players because we just didn't have room enough on the roster, because 6 people on a volleyball court is the same at a public school or a private school. So the opportunities and the access that students have at St. Stephen's is unquantifiable. It is so amazing, the access that the kids have. And it definitely doesn't put them at any kind of a disadvantage because of all the things that they're able to do. They're able to be the star on the basketball court and then go be the star on the lacrosse field. And at the same time, because our teachers and our coaches are so flexible, they're also able to be the star in the spring musical. So those are things that often kids don't have access to, especially at larger public schools. And I think, if anything, it's just a huge advantage for our kids.
Yeah, I think, we talk a lot about knowing and valuing all of our students. And I think that shows up in the college process too. When a teacher can write a recommendation, it just makes it so clear that they know a student and they know what makes them not only unique, but really they can speak to their growth, their development over time.
It is very, very different and really special.
So one of the things about development over time is we're, of course, a pre-K to 12 school, and even with our lovely fledglings. And so people are in different places when they might listen to this. We might have a second grade parent who maybe that's college isn't even on their mind, or it's very much on their mind. And this is kind of what they're thinking about, why they're making such an investment in St. Stephen's. Could you just talk a little bit about what this process looks like, starting quite young here without putting an undue focus on college, but giving them some access to it? I can tell you that in the many schools in which I've worked, I think our process here is the most thorough and the most thoughtful. And I'm not just saying that because I'm here, but I'd love for you to explain a little bit more.
Yeah.
What does it look like at St. Stephen's?
Well, we try to do everything in a scaffolded way, meaning that all of the programming that we do is grade level, developmentally level appropriate, but also taking into consideration that you may have a 4th grader who was born knowing exactly what they wanted to do. And just last year, I met with a 4th grader and his family for over an hour because they set up an individual appointment with me. And it was a really delightful meeting and it was a lot of fun. And that is wonderful, but that's not the expectation for all of our kids. We want the kids to look at this as an adventure, especially when they're young, as something that they can aspire to. And so, the first time all of our kids at once see our graduates is during the senior walk in April. And they go out on the football field in their caps and gowns, and we have our little babies, our little fledglings, leading the charge with the cheers and the chanting, and they get to high five all of our graduating seniors. And it is so cool to see the stars in these kids' eyes, because these are their heroes right now, and it's a really special experience. And I think that sets the stage that this is fun. And then in the intermediate school, we partner with the director, Mr. Hasbrouck, and we do a really fun March Madness event with them. That's all college-based trivia. So it gets these kids learning about schools from all over the place, but fun facts, and it's lighthearted, and it's really just something for them to do that's fun, but at the same time, they are learning. So they do know that the University of North Carolina School of the Arts mascot are the Fighting Pickles. And that is not a school that they would have ever heard of before. And then it starts as they get older, a little bit more serious. So in 8th grade, we partner with the middle school, and we do a really special, I have never seen it before, and it's something that I'm really proud of, is our 8th grade college expo. And they learn about all of their teachers, faculty, and staff, all of their alma mater. So they learn about over 20 colleges and universities from around the world, and they get to take part in learning about their teachers in a different way. The teachers, be a part of an admissions counselor. They have fact sheets. They hear from current St. Stephen's seniors about best ways to really take advantage of all the things we have at this school and make the most out of their upper school. So it's a great segue into joining the high school community. And then once they get into 9th and 10th grade, we have programming for everything beginning in the fall. But how to use our college management system, Maya Learning, how to do personality and career questionnaires. We have all kinds of programming for parents and students throughout the year. And then that just increases when they get to their junior and senior year. We have application workshops, essay workshops, resume workshops, all of the shops. And we meet with our seniors a minimum of one time every single week throughout their senior year until they feel confident that they are going to the school that they were really meant to go to. We even have a Pinterest page of dorm decorations. So we are a full stop shop. And I think that what I can stress most is that it's incredibly personalized to the individual student.
Yeah, I have to tell you, as I said before, I have never heard of that level of attention to detail, even in independent schools that have the luxury of having larger staffs and smaller number of students. So, hats off to you and your team. And I have to say, I'm very envious of the opportunities that they have, even that my own daughter, who went to a terrific school, didn't. And yet there's still anxiety in the process. There are still lots of unknowns or questions, and no matter how well you can help students prepare, or even how well prepared they feel, there are always just some things that they want to know the answers to.
Yep.
What are some of the most frequent questions that students ask? And I think equally important, how do you help them keep this all in perspective? That the end goal is actually not college. The end goal is to have a wonderful life filled with joy and happiness and hopefully success as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are college counselors, but counselor is a part of our title. And sometimes our meetings, instead of focusing on college, are focused on all the other things but college. And so helping our kids really understand that there is so much more to them than numbers on a paper, letters on a paper, accolades, but who they are as a person. For us, helping to remind them as many times as it takes, that's one of the key pillars of our program. We love these kids and we want them to love themselves. And so I think that is critical to how we run our programming and just our meetings and everything. But some of the most common concerns and questions that we get are with the rise in test optional admissions. A lot of the students don't believe it. Even our parents often don't believe it. And they say, if the school is test optional, is it really test optional, or are they going to think I'm dumb if I don't submit test scores? And that's one of the most common questions that we get. And I cannot say it enough. If a school says it's test optional, they truly mean it. They are going to review your application with the information that you provide. And so this is your opportunity to really showcase your best attributes. And if you're not the best test taker, then for that particular school, then you don't have to show that you're not the best test taker. You're going to show them, all of your strengths. A lot of kids are wondering will I get into a good school if I don't have perfect grades? Colleges don't expect perfect. They expect growth. They expect someone who is learning from their mistakes. They expect someone who is taking the time to, focus on that upward trajectory. And so, like I said earlier, there are nearly 4,000 colleges in the United States alone. There is a place for you to grow, to be challenged, to, as cheesy as it sounds, to become a better version of yourself, knowing that there's always a next step after that too. There's always going to be continued learning and growth. And then another quick question that they always ask is, did visiting the college really matter? I mean, I know I've always wanted to go to XYZ college because it's my dream. And I say yes. And it may not matter when determining where to apply, but it definitely matters when determining where to go. So many times I've seen kids go visit their dream school only to come back and say, oh, just kidding. That wasn't my dream after all. And then they visit a school that they, hardly had ever heard of. And they're like, this is exactly where I want to be. So yes, it's very important.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, we all know, of course, that, students and adults are always in the process of becoming and getting to know things, including the college process. Speaking of that, I recently shared both with our staff and faculty and also with our parents this multi-year vision of a Falcon's journey, where we're looking to have every child have a signature achievement during their years here, one that's aligned with their passions and talents and is an achievement that they probably wouldn't have had perhaps had they not come here, and is certainly kind of the result of their long-term growth. Can you speak to some of the signature achievements that you've seen with students who work? And it's not meant to be an all-star team, but just kind of the breadth of things that you are able to talk to colleges about and the students are able to talk about their experiences here.
Sure. 3 come to mind pretty quickly. One is a student who had every intention, and that's currently what she is doing, studying and hoping to follow the pre-med track. So she was a scientist and wanted to do that her whole life, but she was also a really talented and passionate artist. And the teachers at St. Stephen's absolutely nurtured her talent and, made it clear that she didn't have to choose between being a scientist and an artist, but she was also a really cool social justice warrior. And she was very concerned about the homeless population around the area. And she partnered with an organization that had these shipping containers full of donated clothing where those experiencing homeless could come and shop. And it was a really great organization. But the buildings were ugly, and she thought that it kind of made their situation feel even a little bit more sad. That was a little more depressing. And so she partnered with them and painted these absolutely gorgeous murals on the outside of the shipping containers. And she said it was such an eye-opening experience because, yes, they were beautiful, but it also helped them feel more dignity. And it was just a really great experience. And then we had a student who thought he was going to have to choose between playing sports and going to his, high-level academic school. But the coaches here were very supportive. His teachers were supportive. He ended up getting recruited at a school that was his dream. And it was an amazing opportunity, an amazing achievement for him. And then the last is very personal. It's my son, lifelong athlete, took theater as an elective. Miss Elisha saw something very special in him, encouraged him, and now he lives and breathes musical theater. And he got an internship at a community theater. And it's just been something that, again, shows him that he doesn't have to fit into a box. And so great achievement for him.
I love that. And you can't brag on him, but I can. And I think that is the kind of achievement that I'm thinking of, is something that it sounds like when he first got here, it wasn't even on his radar, but he is truly gifted in that.
Thank you.
So before we wrap up, we'll do one more question, and it's a fill in the blank question. If you could give one piece of advice to students and parents about the college process, what would it be?
Parents, trust your own parenting. You've done a good job with these kids. You've raised great people. Trust that the parenting that you've provided is leading them into their own futures and trust yourself enough to know that you've raised kids who can act for themselves, think for themselves, advocate for themselves, and that they're going to be great and they're going to be just fine. So just trust your parenting and walk by their side.
No, I love that answer. I often say that as parents, we want to prepare our child for the road ahead, but we need to be careful that we don't try to prepare the road ahead for our child. And I think that's just so well said, that as a parent, you trust that. And you trust the gifted people like you and others that are working with your child to get them prepared for their next steps. So, Trisha, thank you. Although she's not with us today, thank you to Mrs. Williams for all the amazing work, and Mrs. Voigt. Your entire team is just great.
Yeah, so, you're the best.
And thank you, folks, for joining us, and we appreciate all that you do.
Thank you.